Hi, I'm Nathan Freitas of Guardian Project. We're an organization that focuses on building private and secure open source applications focused on human rights, needs, requirements, applications, and really designing kind of from the edge away from typical use cases into places where um, often maybe there's blocked internet or less internet, or there's a crisis and it's kind of complicated. And so we think about unusual needs and threat models that, sadly are often very much needed. Today, the presentation I'm going to give is on actually two of our projects, Proof Mode and Butter or Butterbox. This is actually a combination of these projects, a collaboration, which we're excited to share. And this presentation was given recently at the SplinterCon event in Berlin by my colleague Darren Clark. It's really great to have him there in person, and I'm just putting it online now. So the focus here is during a crisis, having a way to gather visual evidence using smartphones to document things with photos and videos when maybe the internet isn't so good and you need way to kind of move the content off into other um, storage, and you want to make sure that there's a chain of custody of the content so that people know it's real and was captured where and when you said. So at the core of this is our work on proof mode, which for over 10 years, we have this sort of belief that through our partners at witness.org, Sam Gregory's really worked on this with us for a long time. The idea that every camera should have a proof mode that can be enabled so that the viewer of that photo or video captured by the camera can really believe and verify what they're seeing. So that's something we've worked on since 2013. And now, almost 10 years later, it was used, the application proof mode was used to gather digital evidence in Ukraine. And this was submitted to the International Criminal Court, and working with Starling Lab and their tech partners at Haifa Worker Cooperative, evidence of potential war crimes was captured and submitted with a verifiable chain of custody and integrity. So Proof Mode is a mobile app that using various sensors on the phone and cryptographic signing, it does a lot and it makes it easy. So it takes what is usually in a photo that's easy to kind of manipulate and change and makes that hard. It's available today. It's a free open source public app in the app stores. And you can then share, and this is important, we make it easy to share all of this data through multiple methods for both online and offline sharing to keep the integrity of the file so nothing is manipulated or recompressed in transit. And it allows you to share through a messenger app or file sharing, or also AirDrop or even sneakernets to a USB drive, for instance. It can work with the built-in camera on your device or its own included camera. You're just trying to make it a very simple, fast experience. And again, we can integrate with lots of ways of sharing. There's no centralized server or method you need to use as part of this. So there's the app. We also have a tool called Proof Check, which allows you to take the resulting proof files, the zip files or any of the contents in them, and run it through a very quick check system that looks at all the metadata, the integrity of the files. Is the data consistent? Does it kind of sync with the real world? And Proof Check runs on your own system, so nothing gets uploaded to any centralized server. Again, it can work offline. And so the interesting thing here is that the kind of proof and verification side is powered through a number of really just open tools and most significantly open protocols, things like PGP, but also newer things like C2PA or content credentials that even are supported by, say, Adobe and Microsoft and others now that are, the BBC and others that are using it. So our process creates something that interoperates with pretty much any other open tool out there. So one of the communities we participate in is the Decentralized Web Camp. And so back in 2023, our team went to the DWeb Camp to meet other people interested in decentralization. And it's at this beautiful place called Camp Navarro, which unfortunately happens to also be so beautiful. It's been a great place. And the redwoods, obviously, the natural environment is the beauty. Unfortunately, this is right in a high fire area of California. And places like this get destroyed and burned all the time. And so we had this thought of, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to use proof mode to create a, verifiably real historic record of Camp Navarro, just to have, maybe it could be used to rebuild if that ever needed to be done, or, just to prove that this place exists and the beauty of it and the species and the trees and all of those things in case it is destroyed. Now, obviously, this is, a way to kind of work through a process that is similar to a natural disaster otherwise, or a war, and other very destructive events that people face. So we created a activity for people at the camp called the baseline challenge. Document a baseline of reality, of nature, capture it using proof mode, and then you're going to share all of that proof, and we're going to create a collective document of proof of Camp Navarro. This is kind of the pitch of this event. Document the majesty and intricate details of nature. And so we had people download the Proof Mode app. Now, this is an important part. We did all of this during a kind of offline event where they shut down all the internet at the camp. And so we actually had these small micro servers that are about this big. And those were these butter boxes, small hotspot servers, and they had an app store on them. So first, people would get the Proof Mode app from the app store. Second, they would then capture the documentation, photos and videos of the majestic world around them. They would then connect to the Butterbox again using a local hotspot Wi-Fi and upload the Proof Mode zip files and photos and data to that box using a couple different methods. And then they would receive back kind of a code, content ID, that would say, that's your ticket, your confirmation that you've shared this. And this ID, actually, we'll talk about, along with the hash of the proof itself, is kind of a permanent identifier that will last even as the content moves to other places. So that's how we did the system. And so I mentioned these micro servers, and we call them butter boxes because this idea of like smooth like butter, or como la mantequilla, makes your life a little bit smoother and easier when times are hard. So the butter box is just a tiny little server. Here it is with a battery and a small solar panel. There's different sizes. This is built on the Raspberry Pi platform, so you can run at different scale of device. And on it is an app store, a chat room, file sharing, maps, a few basic services. And it's meant to be very simple. And the apps that we provide all are meant to work without internet in some way. So they're not expected to be online. So you have offline maps or offline YouTube where you can download videos and share them. Compass apps, games, security guides, proof mode, for example, social media apps that work over Bluetooth. So that's the goal. So once you have a Butterbox built, it's just again, you buy a Raspberry Pi, you flash a piece of software onto it, becomes a Butterbox. People can join it with scanning 2 QR codes. It's pretty easy. So we made big signs that showed this, how to join, how to connect. People would then use the Proof Mode app to document, as we said. And then through a very complicated process, which we can talk about, but it would be uploaded from their device. And this is where we use another technology called the interplanetary file system. Won't go so much into that now, but it's sort of a super HTTP that ensures part of the chain of custody of these files. And it also allows us to copy from the phone to the Butterbox, and then later the Butterbox can copy to other computers, and then those can go to the cloud. Later, say you have a satellite connection for a bit, or you take the Butterbox and get on a motorcycle and drive to another city where there is internet. The files can be copied in a way that is verifiably perfect. Nothing's changed. Nothing is recompressed from that original tickets, this ID that you get. And that is very important when it comes to evidence. So as I mentioned, you start offline, you capture the proof, you share it to the Butterbox, and then the Butterbox actually does this publishing, generates this ID, and then it goes online and it can sync all that to the internet to a remote cloud, and bring that content globally and make sure it's preserved off that one little box. So it uses kind of this idea of a sneaker net that then becomes a online network seamlessly. So we have a great team that have been working together for a while on this in different ways. We engage in training and testing and integration with other apps and deployments and supporting different groups from Ukraine to indigenous rights, land rights groups in Latin America, to groups using it in other war zones or for economic documentation, and then also in natural environments such as documenting king tide floods on coastal regions, as an example. So yeah, that's the idea, is that, again, in a human rights application, you have a way to capture evidence on phones. If those phones can get it out directly, great. If not, you can combine this with a offline storage mechanism like a Butterbox, and then that can be part of ultimately a chain of custody around evidence. This could also be used for gathering documentation, anything where there's sensitive data and you also want to make sure it's verifiably accurate. So, all right, well, that's the presentation on splintered networks and unbroken proof. Check out proofmode.org for more information and reach out. Thank you.